David, I thought we'd start off by talking about, first of all, the cuts to foreign temporary workers, which is a bit of a surprise. I think it struck a lot of people yesterday when the announcement was made by surprise. And I know there are a couple of exceptions here. It doesn't necessarily fall into construction and healthcare. I talked to someone from the Quebec Restaurants Association earlier this afternoon. Their comment was this is a bombshell for the industry. What do you think of the announcement?
I really think, Aaron, I was surprised as well, first of all, but the one element that sticks out of this is how political this seems to be. As you know, right now, there's been a shift over the last few months, and I would say maybe a year or two, in the attitudes of Quebecers and Canadians with regards to immigration. It was positive before, and now a majority of Canadians are uncomfortable with the immigration situation. And it is a weakness of the Trudeau government. It's contributing to its unpopularity. So I think what they're trying to do here is to send a signal and to try to show that they're on this issue. But at the same time, it's very bizarre because I don't know if you noticed, but earlier this week there was this announcement where a fish packing plant in Gaspésie closed. And that is a major blow to that region's economy. And one of the major reasons why that plant had to close was for lack of employees. And a lot of those employees come from the temporary foreign worker program. Same thing with our agriculture, Aaron. Yes, it's going to be a very difficult year because already we know that it's going to be a very difficult year because of the climate situation. There's a drought, the fires that are coming. It's going to be very hard, and already we're going to see our farmers struggle this summer, but still there will be crops to be picked. And guess what, Aaron? These aren't Quebecers that have been picking our crops for now decades. They're foreign temporary workers. So when we talk about cutting back, I have an issue with that, and I agree with the restaurant sector angle of it, because at the same time, if we have foreign temporary workers, it's because they're working. It's because there are jobs that need to be filled. We don't bring in temporary foreign workers to not work. So if we need 6.5% of temporary foreign workers, it's because our economy needs it. Now, I get there's students in there, but it's the same thing. Foreign students, as we well know, Aaron, with the whole McGill Concordia scandal with the tuition hikes, we need them. They are necessary to our economy as well. So I can't see any other answer for you than to say this is entirely politically motivated.
You know, to your point, David, I mean, when you read a comment here from the immigration minister, from Mark Miller, it's hard not to see this as being politically motivated. And I'm reading a quote: "The needs of our labor market are tightening, and so should our policy. Today's announcement puts the needs of our country first," unquote.
Yeah, and it is true. To be fair, it is true, Aaron, that unemployment is ticking slightly up. And it's true that we do not need necessarily to invest massively, because I heard your interview with Amanda Lang earlier on the show. And yes, for certain types of jobs, the tightening of the job market and the fact that there is some unemployment doesn't necessarily require us to go to foreign temporary workers. But most of these jobs, like you were saying, restaurant jobs, agricultural jobs, for example, that are desperately in need of temporary foreign workers. And again, if you go across Quebec, there's still many sectors, many businesses that have to refuse contracts for lack of workers. So yes, there is some slowing down of our economy, but we are still in a labor shortage situation, as you pointed out, in the healthcare system and in construction. So these exceptions, think about this. Remember Michael Sabia, his big plan to basically add 50% of power over the next 15 years for Hydro-Quebec,
Yeah.
that's going to take 35,000 construction workers in a sector where we're already in shortage. We're going to need more workers, and they're not going to come from Quebec. They're going to come mainly from, almost all of them are going to come from immigration and the foreign temporary worker program.
So I'm not sure where the government are. There's not going to be a change of policy here, despite however many people complain about this thing. I also asked Amanda if you heard about this issue that we've been dealing with for so long, where people come here who are accredited in another country as doctors, nurses, professionals, and end up driving cabs, and we don't seem to be able to do anything about that either.
Well, that's basically the professional corporations in Quebec and in the rest of Canada that are dragging their feet. Why? Money. Because obviously, if you speed things up and you add more members to these corporations, of course, it's supply and demand, right? If you squeeze off, if you choke off supply, then it's more money. The pie it gets split in bigger slice for the members of that profession. But we have no other choice. I worked on it when I was immigration minister. Some professions, like engineers, have done an amazing job in speeding up recognition of the skills and foreign diplomas. But other professions have been desperately slow. And again, it's a political fight of wills, and the government's going to have to step up on that. But it's provincial. It's not federal jurisdiction.
Let me ask about this. I've not seen the story you're writing. Less people from the rest of Quebec are moving to Montreal. Where's that story? What are we seeing?
Well, the story it was an interesting story in La Presse this morning, Aaron, talking about the fact that it was following migratory patterns, but not of immigrants, but Quebecers within Quebec. Before, let's say for the last 30, 40 years, you would have Quebecers from the regions heading towards Montreal, right? And that got obviously stopped during the pandemic. But what is very interesting is that over the last year, in 2023, actually less people than ever from Quebec are coming to Montreal, which highlights a few things. One, how bad the housing situation and the cost of living situation in Montreal is. Two, just the overall attractiveness of Montreal. It used to be when you were in the regions and growing up in the regions, your goal was to head to the big city and make it. But now Montreal has lost so much of its luster, economically speaking, culturally speaking, socially speaking, that you're at a point where it's actually fascinating to see that Quebecers are actually saying, you know what, maybe there's something more for me to either stay where I am or go to another region in Montreal and avoid Montreal. And that's, to me, is stunning, and it says a lot, because when you look at Montreal, housing crisis, the safety, the overall malaise that we're feeling, the feeling that we're all feeling so morose right now in Montreal. When you look at all the aspects, well, it has an impact on the attractiveness of the city, and therefore our economy and our ability to attract the best and the brightest of our own province.
Boy, to your point, David, I wonder how far back we'd have to go to see that actually having happened before.
I think you're right. Look, I don't remember reading a study, because usually you would have, depending on how well certain provinces. I remember there was a time where everybody was heading to Alberta. Remember when oil was booming and a lot of Quebecers were heading to Alberta. Then Quebec's economy was roaring before the pandemic, and you had Ontarians actually coming in. We had a surplus of Ontarians versus Quebecers going to Ontario. But to see that Quebecers themselves, Francophones, Anglophones, Allophones, are saying, you know what, Montreal, I'm going to look somewhere else.
Wow.
It says a lot about how bad things are here, and it's another sign that Montreal is definitely not heading in the right direction.
There's quite a study. David, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend, Aaron.